I'm Natasha Monfared. I'm an Iranian artist living and working in Hull. I make predominantly quite political artwork, and I'm not a political person at all. I don't really understand much about politics, but for me, the way that it helps me understand it is through art. And I think for me, when I started making artwork, obviously you want to experiment with every medium that you can to kind of find out what suits you best in your style. And I just found going through that process that sculpture and a bit of collage as well, so two completely different things, so something that's 3D and something that's 2D, making them come together and having them influence each other. So maybe an idea will start off as 2D, a collage, and then that can turn into something like 3D, sculpture. Sometimes it can be the other way around, it can be something that I've read or a quote, and then that can take a completely different form. A lot of the work that I do is around Iranian politics and society and obviously feminism there as well, and equality. So that is just a way for me to make me feel closer to those things that are happening across the world. And I can't be there to support them. And this is my way of kind of going, I hear you, I see you, I want to support you, I want to be there with you. And it's just me getting that out to the public on the other side of the world and saying that there are these things happening across the world that we shouldn't think, that we shouldn't miss or that we shouldn't overlook. Because sometimes they can only be in the media for a day or two and then it's gone and no one talks about it anymore. But these things are happening every day, all day around the world. And I think it's, just missed here. So it needs to be talked about, definitely. I have took the plunge and decided to make stained glass windows, which I've been super excited about. And also using another medium and technology such as like 3D printing, which I find is a very, very scary process. So having to learn that, and I'd spend like hours watching tutorials and like reading articles online on how to make like a simple shape on this program. And then when you finally crack it, I really enjoyed it. I loved it because I made these small pellets and from original pellets, made them bigger and kind of changed the scale and colours and things like that. So that was a really, really exciting process to do. And now it's a new skill that I've learned as well that I can take away. But the stained glass window for me is probably definitely a highlight. It is such a beautiful art, it's obviously traditional art, that I don't think it gets enough credit. Now that I've learnt about it and I've been on a course and I've learnt how to do it professionally, just the fact that I've made something myself using the techniques that they had done like 500 years ago, it has been really, really rewarding. And I'm glad that I've been able to do something like this just to kind of like change the space as well, because I've been quite focused on always doing quite sculptural things that have always taken place in the middle of the room, something that you can walk around. We're doing the stained glass windows obviously on the window, having kind of like a 3D impact, kind of like the light shine through onto the floor and on the walls and things like that. I think that's just really, really exciting for me. So I'm really, really happy that I've been able to kind of like learn two new, completely different processes along the way as well. The pellet idea came from doing a lot of research about the women life freedom protests. Zendegi, Azadi. So it came from reading, and it's obviously all plastered all over social media, so it can't be ignored. It is on there, on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, everywhere. So it was just doing a lot of research and kind of finding patterns and what was going on. And then a lot of things that was going on was actually eye injuries. So the morality police would come to these crowds and just shoot air rifle pellets into the crowds, and so many people would have eye injuries. So whether they've been blind in one eye, both eyes, completely lost their right side, it's completely tragic. So there were a lot of different kind of things that were happening, but this one stood out to me the most. So I kind of wanted to do something with that and kind of bring that into the foreground. And I managed to find like an official document online that had 138 women, men and children, so under the ages of 18, that have been injured because of these pellets being fired into crowds. And some of them weren't even fired into crowds. There's one case, a little girl who absolutely broke my heart. She was just on a balcony and she's lost an eyesight. You know, it's completely horrific. Every time I think about it, I think that wasn't just a spontaneous kind of like firing into crowd. That was targeted. How can a child, an innocent child on a balcony, be a threat to anyone? So I think that really needs to be highlighted. So I'd made a series of 138 pellets that represented each of those people. So there's 4 different kinds of pellets, and each one kind of represents each group. So there was 100 men, 30 women, and 4 boys and 4 girls under the age of 18 that had been affected. And I just think that's just horrific. So that's just one thing that I wanted to bring into the element and kind of say, like, this is happening, and it's completely barbaric, it's just completely brutal. But then on the other side, I've got the stained glass windows. And in a lot of my previous work, I've always obviously been really connected to my own heritage, my ethnicity, about being Iranian. I've always been really proud of it. I think it's a beautiful culture, a beautiful country. But I've never actually done kind of anything to do with the art. So obviously we have beautiful mosques, beautiful tile work. So I made these stained glass windows kind of influenced by their designs. And when I was making them, my mum, she got really emotional because it made her think of her stained glass windows back when she lived in Iran as a kid. And she said, like, our bedroom window had like these colours that looked exactly like this. And yes, seeing her kind of get emotional through it as well, that's been really nice. But yeah, it's just this contrast of 2 different things. So also like the brutality, but then the beauty of something as well, kind of coming together. When I kind of first started looking at kind of Iranian art. So it was back when I was in 6th form, and my teachers encouraged me to look into my heritage, my background. Because I just never have. I've always been proud of being Iranian, but I kind of never really given it much thought in it when kind of making artwork. And then I came across the artwork of Shirin Neshat, who has been my all-time favourite artist. She's my absolute hero. And I remember seeing her work back when I was in year 12 or 13 and just been absolutely mesmerised by it. From that day on, I've always just created something about Iran, kind of like bringing my own heritage and background and experiences into my work. And then from there, I think it just got a bit more and more intense. And then when I came to university, I started to explore more of the political side of it and the feminism and bringing those to light and giving, I wouldn't say a voice to people in Iran, because they definitely have a voice, they are heard. And I'll never sit here and say, I'm an advocate for them, like I'm the reason why they're heard or anything like that. But I just want to be a part of them as well, even though I'm on the other side of the world. I'm so proud of them and how far they've come and their resistance. I think that for me is probably my motivation. That to me is probably the most important thing. But definitely coming across Shirin Neshat's work from quite a young age, that had just been really groundbreaking for me. I think one of my favourite books that I read during COVID was by a journalist called Mahsa Jina. It was called The Wind in My Hair. She started the movement called White Wednesdays, which was previously like I've made work in response to that as well. So her book, it reduced me to tears, just about her life and how she was treated, and that really put things in perspective to me as well. When I first started off kind of making work about Iranian women, it was just solely about the Iranian women. I was feminism, especially when I was at university as well. I just remember like my title page was Feminism in Iran. I was just obsessed. Because definitely it was all about making sure that women are heard in Iran. There's just a lot of an injustice and lots of inequality there. I could list loads, but there are so many things that are just so unfair and completely barbaric, and I can't believe that they're happening today, or even laws there. But then as I progressed, and at university I did try to also kind of step away from just making work about Iranian women and making work about Iranian men as well. That, I kind of feel like I did struggle on that a bit, because at the time there wasn't really any kind of I guess, news articles or anything like that, because that's where a lot of my ideas come from. It's just stuff on the internet, kind of reading books, reading articles, things on Instagram. But I think especially with this kind of protest and this revolution that's happening, it is the men that are suffering too. It's not just the women. I think throughout history, especially the history of it has been both, but it's predominantly has been just the women that have suffered from it. But now it's the men that are getting executed, and they're just innocent men that are just going out and just standing by these Iranian women and just saying, we hear you, we see you, we support you. I think in terms of like the wax and lipstick, that all generated from one quote that I read when I was at university, and it was a time of the Iranian Revolution where makeup, kind of like nail varnish, lipstick, that was all just banned. Like if you were seen out in public wearing it, like I've known people that have been out in the street that said, oh, when I was younger and I wore makeup, someone would come up to me with a makeup wipe and say, you have to take it all off. And it was the idea that lipstick was as deadly as a weapon back in that day. And that's obviously when I started making lipstick, the lipstick bullets, and then the mortars, and then the missiles. So it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. But I think for the time, especially with what's going on now, I need to take a step away from that and focus on both men and women as well. So that's come in the form of still the pellets, still kind of something that's really quite brutal and harsh, but it's not come in the form of wax or lipstick at this present time anyway. I've loved being able to use the space differently as well, and being able to do the stained glass windows as well, because if that hadn't been mentioned, it kind of about opening up the wall space and making sure that like kind of having the windows back again, that idea wouldn't have come. So I'm glad that that was mentioned, and kind of gone, oh, I wish something could be done with the windows again. I thought, obviously stained glass windows, because that doesn't make sense to be able to transform the space just kind of with one element as well. So that's also been a great opportunity. And just how everyone's been so supportive, just really being a champion of my work. And every time I've got the tiniest update, and it's just been great that everyone's just been so supportive about it, and just been equally as excited about my work as well, and kind of seeing how that's developed, which I've absolutely loved. So.